Yo, sometimes there are topics where I think, here, I could really get in trouble.
A somewhat poorly constructed sentence.
The provoking of a collective sensitivity that goes wrong.
Like when you go after someone who's really supported or adored. If you're scared, just make videos only about Macron. You'll have fewer problems. But I would find that a little pathetic. And the thing is, taking the risk of being misunderstood or being put in a box with people I don't necessarily like, well, I just can't help it.
In this psychic dynamic, pathetic gives way to ethics, but reveals an antagonistic presence, the pathological.
Huh? What?
Basically, are you out of your mind? Yes, I take poetry classes on Monday evenings, but there's a bar.
The times when I felt like what I had to say was worth it because it was the development of a thought that was rarely heard. Well, I couldn't help myself. That's why today I've decided once again not to hold myself back.
I have a recommendation. The Collision. You're a newspaper journalist, right, Gene?
Yes, I do.
Paul Gagné, McFly and Carlito show, so I'm not going to tell you exactly what I think of them. But if the downfall of the video game universe on the internet had to be represented by a huge castle of crap, well, we'd have it right in front of us. Of the guys who laid the most bricks, it has to be the one building the tallest tower with a mixum.
Paul Gagné, sorry. Well, it's hardcore, but unfortunately, the book is awesome.
When I came across the excerpt, I thought, oh look, they're trying to add a bit of culture, that's good, even with their mouths full. Too bad they immediately butchered the author's name.
He lost his mother in a tragic accident. There was a guy doing a wheelie on a motorcycle who crashed into Paul's mother, who died.
Crashed into Paul's mother. No, but you say collided with, not into. Collided with Paul's mother. I know, I'm being picky. And disgusting, picky and disgusting.
He tells it through his own lens, and then, in a social and political context, that's really interesting.
I'll try to summarize it a bit better. The book. Collision is, above all, the story of the collision between two stereotypical worlds that aren't used to interacting with each other. On one side is a wealthy hipster yoga teacher. On the other, an immigrant's son involved in illegal street racing.
Basically, despite that, I don't blame him and I don't blame them.
Again, that's a quick summary. It's more like, I did the work so I wouldn't blame him anymore. But he really blamed him a lot at first, a whole lot actually, and he even said some things to his father that were a bit racist.
He told me, here's the guy who hit him. His name is Mohammed. And I remember I replied, oh yeah, of course.
Actually, his name was Saeed. There you go. Even if he doesn't say it explicitly when he says, I don't blame them anymore, Carlito is actually talking about Arabs. I'm telling you this because it's important for what's coming next.
I had a rage inside me that I didn't know, and it showed itself in the years that followed. By paying much more attention to far-right speeches because actually I agreed with part of what they were saying.
But in fact, this book is interesting in many ways besides its criticism of the elites and the political media system. But well, that's not just them who. To forgive is not to excuse, and trying to understand that there are multiple causes does not mean exonerating the guilty. There is no set path for grieving, you can choose to forgive or not. And writing a book is also one way, even if in this case I think he goes a bit too far.
I immediately saw that these two protagonists, which is what's fascinating about this story, were each caricatures of their own backgrounds.
When he talks about his mother, it's as a fictional character in his book, maybe that's a bit easier to digest.
You won't get my hatred, even though I have every reason to hate.
It's extremely simplified, but given Carlito's way of thinking, it could only end up there.
So, I invite you to read this.
I asked myself why bring up this topic and why simplify it so much? The answer didn't take long.
I'm involved too. We really got ripped off, and I couldn't stand it anymore.
That's why it was to talk about you. Okay.
It was unbearable, yet you won't get my hatred.
It was unbearable. That means he felt hatred when it happened to him. For years, surely, and even after, it's only now that he doesn't feel it anymore. Why? Because he became super rich and those who used to extort him probably have crappy lives, at least that's what people say. Yes, maybe, but I saw something even healthier. Since when he says we, he means Arabs, and it's frowned upon by his audience to hold it against them. He acts like a humanist to keep raking in lots of fries. No, but I saw something even simpler. He doesn't feel hatred anymore because it doesn't concern him anymore. He had time to move on, even though, obviously, it's also and above all a matter of attitude. Which one? On their knees, mouth open, or on all fours, begging forgiveness. According to them, there's never any political bias, even with a video featuring Macron. It's just to say, when they're called out for racism or sexism, they always use the same catchphrases. We apologize publicly and we'd like to add that we share values of anti-racism and inclusivity. Well, always the same, even when they were doing blackface. We apologize publicly, and we'd like to add that we share values of anti-racism and inclusivity. Guy Carlier, Carlito's father, he didn't have those values with him. And well, there you go, straight away I didn't even whistle. When you have values of anti-racism and inclusivity, you're less likely to fall, and at worst, if you do fall, well, you get a second life. It's kind of like putting little training wheels on your bike. In the end, not great. The metaphor, because when there's a collision, even if you have training wheels, there's no second life for the boo-boos. Oh yeah, well, except if it's Guy Carlier on the bike. That's really just science fiction, values like anti-racism and inclusivity. It would be more like the equivalent of a big premium electric SUV for vacations, with the bike rack of course, just so you can annoy everyone by not respecting anything once you get to the coast.
Forgiveness makes you lighter, which is the goal. Each year, if you become heavier, you're essentially burying yourself fitting, since that's how life ends.
It's still beautiful, a little 100% spontaneous speech delivered with wisdom to the youth.
Which is convenient since that's how it ends. So the only way not to be buried is to let go a bit more each day.
It's still stupid. That even when prepared in advance, he messes up his metaphor. Well yeah, because he said it, that's how it ends, you can't avoid it, so there's no way not to end up buried. Even by letting go a little beforehand, every day. Accumulating hatred means that one day or another you die, whereas if you don't accumulate any, you die one day or another. But you're very Christian, so is that very Christian or what? So even though forgiveness is present in all religions and philosophies, it is central in Christianity, and forgiving your executioner is still almost exclusively Christian. You wear your heart on your sleeve, Carlito. Yes, you're showing Christian charity. How indoctrinated do you have to be to refuse to be indirectly associated with others? You don't eat pork, Carlito, kind of like Muslims.
No.
Or like vegans then.
No, Carlito.
He doesn't eat pork like Carlito. Actually, that's very Christian, isn't it? A few years ago, if I had seen this clip, I would have thought, no, it's nothing. They're just YouTubers like many others, showing off to reach a wide audience. It's not really a problem, like Norman used to do, for example. But isn't it sometimes to hide their true nature? Because there are virtue signalers who get caught for doing nasty things. Yes, there are some every month on YouTube or Twitch, and it won't stop soon. Nice toughness. I finished my bingo, and I only have one left to get keen, and it's even a tentacled animal. But well, they have enough anti-racist and inclusive values to keep running their business with the gullible. But today, I think this kind of talk is problematic for several reasons. Also, first of all, because they're trying to deprive those who listen of their rights to hate and therefore, in a way, to act. You who are being extorted, it's normal, it's systemic, there's nothing you can do about it. You're not going to start defending yourself or worse, feeling hatred toward your attackers. Don't tell me you don't share our anti-racist and inclusive values. All this because they're ashamed of their own little racism and their ability to make sweeping generalizations so quickly. So, to avoid any trouble, we prefer to just move on. I used to hate getting shaken down by this theory, but now it's over, so I don't care anymore. And by the way, I don't care about those getting shaken down right now either. Hey, everyone gets their turn. Yeah, those who share anti-racist and inclusive values. The worst part in his statement, which is completely timeless, is that behind all of this, there's the no. It doesn't concern me anymore. Now, we're still here to keep an eye on those who don't share our anti-racist and inclusive values. Still, if you're a victim of extortion, harassment, or rape, well, you have the right to be angry, you know, just like you'll have the right to forgive when you're ready or not. Yeah, because for him, on top of that, it's easy. He was extorted when he was young, today he's rich, he has no after effects. Forgiving is easy, but by saying that, what is he telling those scarred for life by rape or losing a loved one? Oh well, it's easy. Don't give them your hatred. Yeah, because it covers everything. In the end, forgiving is first and foremost a personal act. Putting it on display sometimes makes it lose a bit of sincerity, especially if it's just to show off and unfortunately to forget, to distance yourself like those two clowns do. Well, above all, it's doing nothing to prevent it from happening to others afterwards. Honestly, I've never had real problems in life, so I won't complain. However, I still hate those who extort, rape, or kill. It doesn't matter who is involved or targeted, it's unrelated to skin color or any systemic excuses people make. The rich kid in private school who bullies a scapegoat or rapes a classmate. Even though he's white, he makes me furious, and I find that extremely racist, ranking offenses and forgiving or not, depending on the origins of the people who commit them. Well, it's not his fault he is. But I'm also angry at this society, the governments we let do as they please, even though we have to give credit where credit is due. Today, when it comes to harassment, things are starting to change in schools. I'm also angry at the right wing, who use news stories like trophies, without having anything else to offer except a vague and distant perspective in case they win the presidential election. And I'm angry at the left, who drop their issues as if they don't care and who would rather keep looking for and finding excuses. These young people who do urban rodeos aren't thugs, they're just young people who are bored. As if the need to feel safe, to not get attacked or killed, was something only the right cared about. Well, yeah, but imagine if the left actually responded to the needs of all French people and didn't leave anything for the far right. Well, they'd end up in power. And then, that's too much responsibility. No, where they're good is in a France split in two. They're betting everything on opposition. Come on, that would be completely stupid, even if, strategically, it would explain everything. Why are we going right? Let's just go. What's the point?
I've never been good at math.
Il est là.
J'ai une reco.
Je suis outré, fils d'outré.
Si tu veux le paradoxe, tape sur clavier. Si tu...
I have an appeal in the interest of the students. Times are tough on YouTube, so a big thank you to those who play with the algorithm, and also to those who support me on TP. See you very soon?
Very soon.